can see when he pops out. Yeah, this is for you. And then at the end, Hi. Thanks for coming in from the cold. This is crazy, isn't it? And thank you for attending this pre-concert conversation. My name is Christa Wessel. I'm the morning host at All Classical Portland, which is where I wait for everybody's favorite radio station. It's #1 preset on all your radios, right? 89.9? And if it's not yet, I'm going to follow you home and make sure it's on your preset at the end of the evening. Joining me today, I'm so excited to do these pre-concert chats with musicians of the orchestra. I feel like it helps us understand the people who are making the music for us. Is Karen Wagner. She's the second oboe player of our Oregon Symphony.
Hello. Hi.
In the little while I've gotten to know Karen, I've fallen in love with her. I think you will too, over the next half hour.
She's so nice.
First, tell us how long you've been playing with the Oregon Symphony.
Absolutely. In January will be my 15th anniversary with the orchestra. So I started in January of 1999. Yeah.
Do they give you like a little pen or something at your 15th anniversary?
I don't know. I guess we'll find out. I doubt it.
Maybe a big karaoke party or something?
Maybe a karaoke party.
Did you know that these Oregon Symphony members often go out and sing karaoke with one another? That's one thing I love about this group of musicians. The more I get to know you, the more I realize it's a real sense of camaraderie among the players.
This is a wonderful group of people in this orchestra, and I've been here long enough now, I can say. If you've been coming to the orchestra for a long time, it's a very different orchestra than when I started playing in it. And yeah, lots of wonderful, wonderful people. And we all actually really get along pretty well. I mean, it's a little weird, but we do. It's true.
Have you played in orchestras where it's not like this?
I haven't, actually. I mean, when I got here, the orchestra still got along very well, but a lot of those people have gone and new people have come. But I think there are definitely orchestras across the country that have their issues. I think we probably do too, but for the most part, you know, happy campers, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
15 years here. Before here,
I came here directly from the New World Symphony, which I don't know if any of you are familiar with, but there's several alumni here and all over the country. It's, in case you're not familiar with it, they call it America's Orchestral Academy. It's in Miami Beach, which is a really fun place to live for up to 3 years, which is how long the program is. And the orchestra is made up of entirely graduates of music schools. You have to have at least a bachelor's degree to play there. And since I've left, it's gotten even better. They've built a new Frank Gehry Hall. They have new housing. But it's basically like, I call it music camp all year, where because you're done with school and basically all you have to do is practice, you know, to win an audition, and many coaches come through from all over different orchestras. They sit in orchestra with you, they give you coachings, and of course Michael Tilson Thomas from San Francisco is the music director. He created this place. I guess I was there for the 10th anniversary, so now it's been about 25, I think, since it started. So it's a great training ground. There's a whole bunch of us here.
A bunch of us. It makes it sound kind of like a family.
Sorry, I'm kidding.
You said it.
I did. It's not. Sergio Carreño, Alicia Paulson, Aaron Levere. The list goes on and on. There's a bunch of us here, so yeah.
You called it a training academy. What was your training leading up to the New World Symphony?
I actually had a little bit of an unusual trajectory to becoming a professional musician in that I attended a regular university for college where I studied music versus a conservatory, right? In my hometown of Buffalo, New York. And I had a wonderful teacher, and because the music school wasn't Juilliard or something like that, he knew that if he couldn't give me everything I needed, that he would send me off hither and yon to go study with others, which I think is a really, really remarkable trait in a teacher, to say, I think you could get something from someone else. You know, that's pretty awesome. And so I did spend a year studying with the teacher at Eastman, and also with the late John Mack at the Cleveland Institute. And I just took the bus to Rochester or Cleveland once a month and did that. And then from there, I went on to do a master's degree with Alan Vogel. You guys know him here. He's a beloved around here.
He plays at Chamber Music Northwest quite a lot.
He plays Chamber Music Northwest. He's the principal oboist of the LA Chamber Orchestra. and a wonderful person if you ever get a chance to meet him. And in between my 2 years at USC, I was fortunate to, this sounds terrible, but someone passed away in the Louisville Orchestra in Kentucky, and I was invited to go sit second chair there. And that was one of the places I realized I really enjoyed playing second oboe. So I had a year of master's degree in California, moved to Louisville for a year, back to California to finish my master's, and then I went on to the New World Symphony. So we hop around.
You just said something about that you realize that you love playing second oboe. Most musicians are trained to get that principal job, to have that solo career, to stand in the spotlight, but you've never really had that?
Well, I do enjoy being in the spotlight a little. You'll get some of me tonight in the spotlight. I think later on we'll talk about that. But yeah, I really enjoy being in a supporting role. It's a very different job. It seems like it's not stressful, but it's stressful in a very, very different way. And in the second oboe chair and second bassoon also, we spend a lot of time in the low register playing softly, which if you've ever played the oboe is really not easy. So that's one of the challenges of that. But in this orchestra, I also get the great fortune of being assistant principal. So I get to dabble in that chair as well. And probably coming from New World, where we just did a complete and total rotation all the time, I'm trained to do that. So that happened right away when I got here. I started playing principal on here and there. You've probably heard me many times. So I get to do both things. But I do like being the backup singer. It's really fun. Yeah.
20 feet from stardom.
Exactly. Close enough for me.
You've been here 15 years, which means you were here when Fred Corman left as principal chair, and there was a vacancy. The principal oboe position was open. You were playing second to Fred. Did you decide to not then audition for that principal chair?
I think that was the most shocking answer to a question that people have ever asked me. Are you going to take the audition? And I said, no. And they were like, what? I mean, I think that is a little bit unusual, that some of us really do like playing second, and I could have taken it, but then I wouldn't have had a hand in hiring that amazing Marty Hebert, which I did have a hand in. And I wanted to be part of that process. I don't want to not have a hand in picking who sits next to me for the next, as it turns out, now he's been here 7 years or so. So yeah, I didn't take the audition, and Marty is a wonderful principal. Fred was a wonderful principal too. You all are familiar with Fred. And it's just, I've been lucky. I've gotten to sit next to two really great people, and now I am surrounded by not only Marty, but I have Kyle. I love my section. They're just great guys and great players. So,
did any of you happen to be here when I did an interview with Marty Hebert as a pre-concert chat last year? Yeah, he is a remarkable individual, and aside from being a wonderful player, a very generous principal oboist. He, in fact, I don't know whether I steal your thunder here, but. The last work on tonight's program is Tchaikovsky's Symphony No. 4, which has a huge oboe solo in it. And Marty said, I've played that solo in my career. Karen, how would you like it?
Yeah, we sat down and looked at the schedule, and he usually, we pick out what we're all going to do, and he said, you want to play Tchaik 4 this year? And I was like, yeah, I do, but do you really? That's just a really, I said this to him the other day, and I made sure I could say it to all of you. It is a highly unusual piece for a principal oboe player to give up. If you're familiar with it, the huge solo opens the second movement. There's one in the third movement. It's just the most standard piece of principal repertoire. And that's the kind of guy he is. He just said, this will be good for you. I've played it a million times. Let's have at it. I thought, okay. So I'm doing that tonight. So
if you're comfortable being the backup singer, what is that like for you then to be in the spotlight and take that solo?
Yeah, it's different. And also, I think this is a good time to mention, it's lovely to be in the spotlight and be able to play a piece with that kind of enormous, beautiful solo in it. But it's also really good practice for those of us who play assistant in the orchestra. So I play assistant principal oboe, Alicia Paulson plays assistant principal flute, Evan, our contra player, and Todd Coons plays assistant principal clarinet. And if you never get to do it, and God forbid something happened to Marty and I had to jump in and do it at the last minute, and he didn't give me opportunities like this, it would be that much more devastating and scary. So this time I knew about it. So, so that was good. You're prepared. I'm prepared. So it's just good. It's really good practice for us to do it, aside from just the usual, concerto here and there, or something like that.
You haven't brought your instrument out here tonight, but when I interviewed Marty Hebert last year and he was showing us his instrument, he made reference to the fact that the kind of oboe he has degrades over time. It may only last a few years. He said, your oboe is different. He made a specific point to say, Karen's oboe is different. It lasts longer. Can you explain how yours is different than Marty's?
Sure. Marty plays an instrument, a French instrument called a Lorraine oboe, and I play a Laubin oboe, which is made by a guy in Peekskill, New York. He's the second generation of maker, and he's now 80 years old. His dad passed away. And this instrument is different and lasts longer because the inside of the top joint has a plastic sleeve in it.
Top joint,
And
I'm
the
sorry.
top joint, the top of the oboe, the very tippy top where the reed goes in, that comes off.
Because the whole thing comes apart in like
It's
2 or 3 parts.
3 parts, yeah. And that has a plastic sleeve in it, and that prevents it from cracking. I knock on wood because it's so cold today as I say this, but my oboe, I've never had an oboe crack. And if you talk to any oboe player in the world, like hardly any of them would ever say that. Most oboes crack, they just do. Marty, you know, he's pretty experienced with that, and most people are, but I haven't had that problem. This sleeve protects the wood from the things that cause oboes to crack, which is pushing warm air through a cold wooden tube at high speeds, high pressure. And that makes cracks happen, so.
So how long have you had your oboe?
Actually, I just got this one.
Oh.
Because there's only one guy making them in a little tiny little factory, not even a factory, but I waited 7, 8 years for this one. I just got it a year and a half or 2 years ago.
You mean you were on like a waiting list?
I was
for
on a
that?
waiting list.
Wow.
Yeah, and I'm on another one, so I think in about 5 or 6 years I'll get another one. Yay!
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't ever consider waiting lists for anything other than brunch reservations in Portland.
Right? Who knew?
So I want to go to another component of your performing life. You know, the Oregon Symphony plays fall through spring, and then a lot of the musicians scurry off to summer festivals and various places around the country to keep playing through the summer when we're not here in the Schnitz. What do you do in the summers?
I have been playing principal oboe at the Cabrillo Festival of Contemporary Music in Santa Cruz, California. This will be my 13th summer coming up. Marin Alsop is the music director. It is 2 straight weeks of orchestral contemporary music, so full orchestra, living composers pretty much only. We do a little bit of dabbling in people who may have recently passed, but mostly it's everyone's there and you can consult with them. It's wonderful, I love it. Evan, our contra player, also plays as well. It's a blast, yeah.
Does that mean you have a particular love for contemporary music? That's why you go to this festival? Or is it just a beautiful place to spend the summer?
It's a lovely place to spend the summer. I love playing contemporary music. Should I tell the little story? So, when I first played for Alan Vogel, and I was, I don't know, I guess I was doing my first year of master's, and he very sweetly looked at me and said, after I was done playing something, he said, Karen, oboists are not natural drummers. And I was like, does that mean I have bad rhythm? And he was like, it's not great. And so I said, well, what am I going to do about this? And he said, well, you know, we have this really great contemporary music ensemble here at USC, and you should really think about checking it out. And so I did, and I don't know what it is about the crazy meters and the high notes and all the things, but I love it. It's challenging. It's like a really hard crossword puzzle. But I'm much better at playing contemporary music than I am at doing the crossword puzzle. I feel like it keeps me sharp, and it really did do wonders for my rhythm, actually. So, yeah.
Well, that leads me into one of the pieces that's on tonight's program. The second piece in the program is by a living composer, Magnus Lindberg, and this concerto was only written 7 years ago. It's exceedingly contemporary.
Exceedingly.
So have you played in that Santa Cruz festival at Cabrillo,
I have
Lindberg's
not played
music?
this piece, but I have played 2 or 3 of his pieces, and I listened to it today. I'm not playing it. I got rotated out of that piece. But I listened to it today, and if you're not familiar with his music and you happen to like this piece, then you will like his music because it's very indicative of how he orchestrates. And although this piece is a little bit more unique in that it only has 2 oboes, 2 bassoons, 2 horns in terms of wind complement, and then the full orchestra of strings. But everybody else is getting a piece off, and it's great. Give it a chance. It's not as crazy as other contemporary music you'll hear. And she sounds fantastic. It's really great.
I had the good fortune to interview Elena Vehila at All Classical Portland earlier this week, and it was such a honor to get her insight into this work. She was sharing that the violin concerto by Magnus Lindberg debuted at a mostly Mozart festival, hence the word mostly Mozart. But because that's where it debuted, Lindberg wrote the orchestration for a Mozartian type orchestra, so it's relatively small strings. It's just that two horns, two
oboes, two bassoons.
Yeah, so it's a small Mozartian orchestra. So it's tempting to think of contemporary music as being 18 harps and 32 brass instruments, but it's not that at all.
No, it's not.
And it is all performed all in one arc. There are several distinct movements that are attached. And it is a transfixing work. I just found myself closing my eyes and just letting my ears go with it. But it is in a very contemporary language, but not at all scary, I don't think.
No, I think you like it.
And talking to a number of musicians in the orchestra, several have told me that this is one of the most difficult programs performed thus far this season. One of the reasons probably because of that Prokofiev, too.
Yeah, that Prokofiev has something really hard in it for just about everybody. And I think it's okay. I think my colleagues won't be mad at me if I alert you that in the last movement, is there 6 movements? I should know this. In the very last movement, whatever number it is, I think it's 6, but it might be 5. I don't know. There's this fiendishly difficult string passage of 16th notes, and they just sound fantastic on, by the way, in case any of them are listening. And that is I think, their sort of thorn in their side, but there's something pretty much hard on every page of that piece, and I think everybody's played Tchaikovsky pretty much a million times, so we're all pretty much honing in on the first half, I think, yeah.
That said, how has it been working not only on this hard music, but with a guest conductor? Thierry Fischer is here from the Utah Symphony, leading the band this week. How's it been working with him?
He's delightful. He's very demanding and very gentle about it. Carlos is also very demanding and maybe a little less gentle about it. That's okay to say, isn't it? And plus we know each other, and he says what he needs to say. But this guy is he's really unrelenting in what he wants, and has a very sort of soft approach to getting it. And I think I really enjoy playing for him. He's wonderful. And if you know the Tchaikovsky well, you'll hear some different things that he does with it, which is actually really refreshing because it's such a warhorse. And he's gonna refresh you to that a little bit, I think.
I was going to ask you about that because that's one common thread as I talk to various musicians. They say, yeah, his approach to the Tchaikovsky is not quite what you would expect. Are you able to, put you on the spot, articulate perhaps something that he's taking a fresh or different approach?
Yeah, I think in the first movement, there's a couple of places that really most conductors and recordings that you hear will really drive the tempo and move the tempo. And actually, he's in one particular place that I'm thinking about, he's doing exactly the opposite. And of course, when we first played it, we all just went, we all charged ahead, and he's like, no, I'm not doing that, I'm doing this. And you go, oh, right. And so there's that, and then there's a spot or two in the fourth movement that are very traditionally done, where there's a sort of a big little climax in the middle of the movement, and then there's a break, and then it starts, or whatever it is, and that's the spot. I've gotten caught there a couple times this week because I can't remember ever playing that piece, even though I haven't played principal on it. I can't remember anybody ever doing it that way. And so it's nice to have something refreshing, keeps you on your toes, makes it interesting. So.
For those of you who've come in, this is Karen Wagner, who plays second oboe, assistant principal oboe, here in the orchestra and has for the last 15 years. And we talked a little bit about what brought you to Oregon, to the Oregon Symphony, but we didn't touch on what made you choose the oboe in the first place. I have to be honest and say, when I've heard beginning students on the oboe, I run screaming into another. It's not a pretty sound. No. So how did you, unless you were just naturally gifted at the beginning, how did you power through that kind of awkward phase?
My musical journey started I started Suzuki piano at 5. And then sadly, my teacher moved away from Buffalo. She moved to New Jersey, and I was just so sad about it. And my mom, I don't know what she was thinking, bless her heart, but she was like, oh, you should take normal piano lessons now. And I was well on the Suzuki track. So I think the combination of switching out of Suzuki and then to a new teacher all at once, I just basically stopped practicing. And she was like, you can't just not practice. We can't do this. You have to practice. This costs money. And that was right around 3rd grade. And then 4th grade, you go to school in New York, you get to pick your instrument. And we had a family. I think I dabbled in the idea of playing the flute for a minute, and my mom was like, no, you don't want to do that. And as it turns out, I totally agree with that. But, and she said, you know, the Weinstein's child, Randy, this woman, mentioning her name, but she plays the oboe. You should go over there and you should check it out. And I think she was being pretty crafty because I really, really looked up to this girl. I was really into her. I thought, oh, I want to be just like her. She plays the oboe. I'm going to do it. And so when I went in 4th grade and I said, I want to play the oboe, I think the band teacher, like, she jumped up and down. No one does that. And, like, I mean, it's very rare to start on that instrument. Usually what they do is they take the sort of really talented clarinet and flute players and try to, like, entice them over to the double reed family. But I didn't need to be enticed. I was just like, let's play this crazy thing. And of course, in 4th grade, you don't have to make reeds, and you don't know about making reeds, and you think, oh, this will be fine. Somebody will just supply me with reeds for the rest of my life. Well, no, that's... I only wish that were true. But so I started with my band teacher in 4th grade, and then in 6th grade, my mom got me a private teacher, and I started making reeds, and I was 11. And it might have been a little early, but considering...
considerably early for a kid
It's pretty
to learn?
early, but I'm glad because it's, you know, I don't know that it comes naturally to anyone, the reed making, but I'm glad I learned young because I needed a lot of training. And I feel like we're still learning. I don't know if I feel like Marty's like the most awesome reed maker, and he thinks I'm a good reed maker, but he's insane. I'm not. I mean, he's only in that way. But I think we all think we're bad reed makers because your whole life depends on these 2 pieces of wood that just, you know, and around here the weather changes every 3 minutes, or 5, I think they say. So your good reed this morning is your terrible reed later, but you don't really know that that's going to happen. You have to soak it up, and it's a crapshoot almost every time you open the case. And I think actually if I didn't have to make reeds, I'd be much more relaxed in general about playing, you know. But I do. Alas, I do.
I actually happened to sit in on a lesson of Marty's this summer when he was teaching at a woodwind camp out in the Wallowas. And I was thinking I'm going to go, you know, listen to Marty teach a young student how to play a beautiful tone. And they sat there the whole time and made reeds together.
Yeah.
That's part of the lesson.
Yeah. It can take the whole lesson. And there, you know, and getting kids to make reeds is, I found, the greatest challenge of being a teacher, especially if they're not driven to do this for a career. I mean, there are plenty of people out there who have reed businesses. And of course that begs the question, why don't we just buy them? And I don't know, why don't we? The answer is because we have too much pride. And as you know, I mean, you'll hear me play, you've heard me play, you've heard Marty play, you've heard Kyle play. We all have sort of a unique sound. It's one of those instruments that's a lot like the human voice. We are able to be ourselves in a way because we all make this little reed. And so, you know, I don't love it, but I do it because it makes me sound like me, and I like that. You know, it gives me my sound. So.
You mentioned part of it being a good teacher, and I thought we haven't talked about you. You're a teacher, too.
Yeah.
You have a number of students, oboe students.
I do. Right now I have 4 teenagers, and I have 2 adults that I teach, that I've been teaching for a while, and I love teaching. It's very fun, yeah, and rewarding.
Are the teenagers easy to teach, or the adults?
Teenagers, I love teenagers. I don't know what it is about me and teenagers, but we get along. Maybe it's because I'm still a teenager.
Exactly.
The adults, actually, I'm lucky. I have 2 really great adults. Sometimes adults can be challenging to teach because we're already formed, and kids are like sponges. You know, I mean, even teenagers who are pretty well formed or on their way, they're ready to do what you tell them, and I guess I like that. But it is different teaching adults than teaching kids, but I've been lucky. I've had really dedicated adults who are pretty talented, so.
And were your parents musicians? Is that how music became part of your life?
I am like one of the only musicians in my entire family. I have one other cousin or something he used to play the trombone. And my mom took us to the Symphony. She was a patron of the arts. She still goes. She lives in Buffalo. She sees the Philharmonic regularly. She goes to plays. It was part of my upbringing. I was the only one of the 3 of us that really took to it. But yeah, I think It's interesting. I know a lot of musicians who have musical families, and I think that can be a bonus and can be great too. It can also be not so lovely. So I feel lucky. They don't really understand what I do, but they love it and they have been completely supportive. So that's pretty cool.
I think we have time for a couple of questions. Are you game?
Sure.
If anyone has any questions about the organ. Oh, look at all these hands. Oh, aren't you sweet? Okay, we'll start with you. And I'm either going to hand you the microphone or repeat one. I'll just repeat your question. She says, if oboe's cracked, does everyone have a backup?
Yeah. I mean, in the professional world, most people have two. Not just for that reason, but it's a good reason to have a second one, yeah. And sometimes, this is going to sound strange, but sometimes the cracking doesn't affect anything. Sometimes it doesn't go all the way through, and sometimes it's real bad. So it just really depends on the crack, but yeah, most people have two.
Can I ask a rude question?
Yeah.
How much does a typical oboe cost?
I think a new Luray right now is about $8,000. We're in the low end of cost for instruments. $8,000 for Luray, and the one that I just got, I think you'll understand, as they're handmade over years and years. Mine was $11,800, so almost $12,000.
I don't know of any other job in the world where the employee is expected to, fork over $10,000 to perform their job.
Which of you doubles with the English horn?
Kyle.
Kyle?
Yeah, Kyle.
I love it.
Isn't he wonderful? Yeah, he's great.
Kyle is a blessing to this orchestra.
And he's also a great oboist, too, just because that's important to know.
You talk about oboes cracking. I'm wondering about this severe cold weather. How's this, coming from the severe cold in your car, as you carry it, and then coming into this warm auditorium, how does that affect your oboe in playing, like even tonight?
I think it affects every instrument that's made out of wood in the orchestra. You'll hear people say things like, "Oh, my instrument feels brittle tonight," or for me, it's mostly my reeds. I feel it. I mean, we warm up the instrument with our body. You'll see us sometimes with our instruments under our armpits. That's so that you can acclimate to the inside temperature after coming in from outside. The reed still has to soak in water, and maybe in this weather, you'll see us tonight dipping a few extra times in the water just because everything dries out so fast. So it's a good question. Yeah.
Did you have a question? What choice of woods?
Oh, the oboe that I play and that Marty plays, most people play, is made of grenadilla wood. And which is a black African tree. It's like I've never actually seen one in person, but it's a very dark wood. And then there are oboes that are made out of rosewood as well, which would be like a lighter, they're very beautiful looking, lighter color. That's pretty much it. There's violet wood, but that's it, I think. Yeah.
Anybody else? Thank you for coming to this pre-concert conversation. If you know an oboist who may enjoy listening to this particular conversation has been videotaped. Hi, Joe. And it'll be uploaded to the All Classical Portland website later tonight, so you can point some friends and oboe fans to this conversation, which will reside at allclassical.org. And this is Karen Wagner. We wish you great success on that big oboe solo in the Tchaikovsky 4, and thank you for doing this.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.